Good morning and welcome to another great Tuesday morning, another great edition of Money Truth Moments with our very own Money Truth expert and whisperer, Judy Copenbarger. How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you, Carlos?
I'm doing fantastic. I've been so looking forward to today. We have a great subject to talk about. Not that every other subject we haven't talked about has been great, but this actually hits a little bit on the personal level, right? So we want to focus on our personal finance, but more importantly, I want to talk to you about emergency funds 101, right? We're going back to the basics. So there's a lot of questions I have for you, and I don't want to miss out or run out of time. So what do you say we get started?
Let's do it.
All right. So the obvious question, right, is what is an emergency fund and why is that important?
Oh, well, stuff's going to happen. Life is going to happen. So you always want to have that cash reserves available. Otherwise, you're going to be whipping out a credit card, right? And then that becomes more expensive. It's hard to plan for that. Then you have this line item in your budget, in your spending plan that you don't really want there. Yeah, you just want to be prepared. It's about being ready.
And when we talk about being ready, right, let's see, how can having that emergency fund prevent these, everybody goes through financial stress, right? And not having that, when you think about an emergency, it's always chaos, everything related to that. So to going back to this, so how can this emergency fund, right, help with financial stress?
It just makes it go away. It totally makes it go away. When you're prepared, when you're ready, you don't have that what if. And it might not be top of mind, in the front of your head where every day you wake up and go, oh, do I have enough in savings? Right. But it's those little things, what if something happens to the car? What if something happens to the garbage disposal? The baseball goes through the windshield, things like that happen. What are we going to do about that? Are we going to have to go to family? It's like, help me out, or a neighbor, or borrow from somebody? Are we going to whip out a credit card or take a line of credit that we really don't want to? What are we going to do about that? So it's kind of one of those things that's always kind of there when you're not prepared. When you are prepared, you don't think about it. Like it doesn't even enter your mind. You just go on and you can be more creative and more friendly and do your life. But when it's not there, that's when you have this kind of like underlying anxiety. It's like, what if,
Right.
would I be ready? So it can go a long way toward reducing or eliminating any kind of financial stress, just being ready.
So in your experience, right, over the years, you've dealt with a lot of folks, all ages, all age groups and all that. But what are some common financial emergencies that you've come across normally that people face? We don't even think about it, right? The thing, it's the same thing.
Yeah, if you've lived it all, you've had it happen. It's going to be home, car, health. Those are the three big ones. I mean, once in a while you could say, well, that outfit for the recital is important. That's an emergency. Or the soccer cleats are important because the kids got to play the game, right? But it's usually going to be those things, the transportation things, anything that has a lot of moving parts. I always say the garbage disposal, but the washer goes out or the refrigerator ice maker stops working. I don't know if that's an emergency. At our house, it is. We really like our ice. Or just a refrigerator goes out. We replaced one in one of our rentals just last week. The freezer worked, but the refrigerator stopped working, and the repair was almost the cost of a new fridge. So it's just like, let's just get a new fridge. Well, that was. I thought maybe 1,200. It was 1,500, and it's not top of the line at all. It's just a refrigerator, and it's not even a big one. It's not a Sub-Zero. It's just it's like, that's a chunk, right? So we were ready, but I mean, if you're not ready, that's a lot of money, from a monthly to carve out from a monthly expense sheet. So those things happen. It's going to be home, car, health usually. And by health, I mean, now we've got to go to the pharmacy. You got this little cough, you go to the pharmacy and it's like over the counter stuff that's expensive. And even if you have a copay and you have good insurance, the doctor visit, you might have to pay a little bit for that. If you need a prescription, you might need to pay a little bit for that. And if it's not expected and you don't have the cash reserves, you're going to be using that credit card. And now you're going to pay interest on whatever, the cost was. So being ready, just be ready, just prepare. It's not that hard, right? And it's easy to start. We can talk about, how to do that, but just be ready.
And also, folks, if you're just joining us, welcome to the show. If you just getting in here, make sure that you watch a little bit of the beginning where we're actually focusing on Emergency Funds 101. Also, if you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.today. We'll talk a little bit more about her website a little bit later on. But let's keep moving because this is all great content and great stuff. So, as we're preparing, right, how much money should someone ideally have in their emergency fund?
Oh, that's a great question. People ask me this a lot. Well, how much should I save? Because obviously we want to invest and save for your retirement and save for, those trips coming up and all those goals that we have. But how much should we have in actual cash reserves? And I think for most people, if you're a working person, right, not retired yet, but working, I would say probably 3 months of your basic expenses, your fixed expenses. That's going to be your housing, your transportation, your food, insurance, things you have to have, not food and clothing and entertainment and things like that, but just the basics. 3 months of that is probably an amount of money that allows you to sleep pretty well at night. And if something happened, I'm okay. And I would say that's if you're married and you've got, dual incomes coming in. If something happened to one of you, the other one, there's still some income. I think if you're single, you need a little bit more than that, time wise. So maybe 5 or 6 months of your basic expenses. So if you normally spend, let's say 5,000 a month and 3,000, you can't do without, that's like, survival money. If you're single, you might want to have maybe 15,000 or so. If you're married, maybe 10, 12,000, would be more than enough. So
Gotcha.
something like that.
So, as we're putting these funds aside too, what do you think are the best places to keep these emergency savings?
Well, I would say a cash account. I mean, some people just keep cash at home, that much cash at home. That's risky. Somebody might break in, you might have a fire, so something can happen. So I would say
So my,
just
so my mattress is out of the question, right? Under the mattress.
Well, I'm not going to say I've never done that, right? The sock drawer is my go-to. So I tell the kids, hey, if there's a fire or an earthquake and I'm not here, go look where my socks are. You're going to find a whole bunch of stuff there. You're going to want to know what's in there. Which they say, I've had people tell me all the time, don't do that. That's the first place the crooks look.
Mhm.
Right. They dump out your underwear drawer and, find all this stuff. It's like, well, they would at my house. But I would say really besides the mattress and the sock drawer, if you have a safe, and we have a safe with stuff in there, but I would say just the cash part, credit union or the bank, just where you locally go and your paycheck is automatically deposited, all that stuff. I would just have a good savings there. A lot of teachers have the advantage of the schools first. Veterans, they have the USAA, there's great credit unions out there. And it's neat because you can have a whole bunch of accounts they don't charge you for, and you can earmark them. Like this one is for emergency reserve. That's a cash, for what if. This one is for our trip. We're planning for next summer. This one is for, when the kids start tuition to go back to school and get their books and their shoes and their uniforms. So you can have all of these cash accounts that are earmarked for different things. But one of them should be the D&T account. Do not touch. Cash reserves, it really is savings. It's not like you put it in and you rob it out to pay the bills, and you put it in and you rob it out to pay the bills, right? You leave it there and you always have it. That's your I sleep really well at night money. And that's that, 3 months or 6 months or whatever that number is for you. So that's the way to do it. Put it in a really good cash account. If they have a liquid, which means you can take money in and out freely. If they have a liquid account that is money market at your credit union, that's great because you'll get a better interest than just a flat passbook savings. So look for something that gives you at least a few percent. Right now, I would say 4.5 would be about as good as you're going to find. If you can find something around 4%, that's pretty good for cash. And put it there, set it and forget it.
It's interesting because you're right about credit unions. There's a lot of little things that are really cool to have in a credit union. I mean, I still have mine, and I've been there with them probably about 30 years, and I don't close it. It's just there for whatever, it's help with cars and different things like that. It's always very helpful with this. So that's great that you brought that up.
The
Let's
rules
talk.
are good in a credit union because the passbook holders, the savers, are the owners. It has a lot better regulations. It has a lot better offerings usually. And like you said, you go there if you're going to want to get a really good rate to borrow money for a car or even a home. So those are great.
So let me ask you this too. So obviously, everybody's situation is different. It's not a cookie cutter system, right? So there's a lot of people out there listening, and you may know someone, if you're watching, that struggles paycheck to paycheck, right? So for someone like that, who the mindset is usually like, no, I can't do that because I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I'm using every little penny. But how can someone like that start building an emergency fund with that very limited income?
Just a little bit. If you have any money in the bottom of your purse, in your wallet, under your seat cushions, in the car, there's always some money. People say I don't even have a penny, but you do. You have pennies, you have quarters, you have dollars. What if you just, every time you went to the grocery store, took $1 or two, put it in an envelope in your sock drawer or wherever you're going to start the savings, just put a little bit away. You won't miss those little bits. And even if you start, you're looking at all of your line items on your spending plan, some people call it the B word, budget, right? You're looking at your spending plan. Is there 1% that you could start with? Every time you get paid, you get your, several $1,000s, whatever it is, you take 1% of that, just a few bucks, and put it away, put it in this account. You're not going to touch. Maybe it needs to be a true savings. So it's not the account, the bank that has the accounts that you use all the time, and you go to the ATM and the money flies out the wall, right? It's maybe a different bank that maybe doesn't even have a branch in your neighborhood. So when you go there, it's intentional and it really is savings. You can set everything up automatically, but when you put money in there, it is designed to stay there and accumulate to that level that you need for your cash reserves. But 1 or 2%, you probably won't miss that. Just a little bit, couple of bucks here, a couple of bucks there.
And you know what's cool too is I remember years ago too, and to this day, any loose change, I always put it in this little, my little change jar or whatever. And you'd be surprised how quickly you can actually develop a couple $100, a few hundred or whatever with it too, just like what you say, just throwing in that little bit of extra money that you're not even really thinking about too.
Yeah.
Um,
And I always did that. I don't anymore. I don't really like change. I don't use cash very often, really. Even if I drive through to get a burger or something, it's probably going to be my credit card that I get the points on. So that's one thing. That's one thing.
mhm.
But rounding up, they have at the grocery store even round up for charity. Well, why not round up for your own cash reserves? And
Good
then just
point.
peel off that one extra buck or that one extra five off the top, pretend like you spent it on a cup of coffee, but it actually goes into your cash reserves account. So you can do that little at a time.
So tell me also, like, from what you've seen, what are the biggest mistakes people make when saving for emergencies?
They don't. They don't.
Simple enough,
Right?
right? There you go.
There's no way to make a mistake. I suppose you could say it's a mistake to put all the money under the mattress, I would say when it comes to saving, the mistake I see when it comes to saving versus investing is people save too much. So we're only talking about in emergencies, right? Now, if you have a goal coming up, you're going to want to save more cash, you're saving up for a new car or something like that. But most people that have money that could be working have their savings, right? They have some kind of savings or cash reserves. Whether it's enough or not is debatable. But then they'll save more than that, too much. And they end up with money that could be out working and invested is still sitting in the savings account, earning that 2 or 3%, 4%. That should only be the cash reserves amount, not the amount that could be invested and working. Get Mr. Money out there, right? Put his little dollar t-shirt on and go to work. So we want money working, but we just want to balance that right. Once you have that cash reserves of several months of base and any other cash that you need for a short-term purchase that's coming up in the next year or two, beyond that, all that money should be working. I would call it below the line. I usually show it visually, but that put Mr. Money to work, right? Anything beyond cash reserves should be earning way more than just passbook savings or a basic interest.
So having said that, like I said, everybody's situation is different, right?
Mhm.
For me, an emergency might be that I don't know, for lack of better examples, my favorite shoe is just now has, a smudge on it. That's an emergency, right? Sky's falling. But all sarcasm aside, tell me, how does someone determine whether an expense qualifies as an emergency, right? And this is more of an open question because I know everybody's different.
Yeah, I would say if your quality of life is compromised, if you don't make the expense, that's an emergency, right? So let's say you need new tires on your car, they're bald. If you're going to have a problem because you got to get to work and now we have a flat tire, we have, worse, an accident or something, that's going to compromise not only your stress levels, but quality of life, right? If you can't get to work, that's a problem, right? Or you need new brakes on your car, whatever it is, it's like not drivable. I would say the same thing at home. We talked about your refrigerator goes out. That's really going to compromise your quality of life. If you can't keep your milk cold, right, and keep your groceries fresh, and now you're wasting, whatever was in your fridge. So that's a quality of life thing. So, it comes down to, we talked, kind of joked a little bit about my kid needs soccer cleats. Well, there's a big game. There's a big, competition this weekend, and everybody's coming in from all over town. And these cleats really are hurting, pinching his toes, and he can't run right. We've got to get cleats. Well, if it's going to compromise your quality of life, and that's arguable, then we've got to go get the cleats. We've got to get the new shoes, right? Or find some somehow, borrow some, whatever. So I would say when your life is impacted negatively and it's like, I just can't function, or it's very uncomfortable to function, and that quality is just not where it needs to be, then it's an emergency. So you think about, do we really need to go out for pizza Friday night? Pizza and beer and whatever. I don't know if it's going to really mess you up. Now, if it's just the family going out, maybe we could, make pizza at home or do something different. But let's say you've got relatives coming at a class reunion or some kind of big event, and now we need to go out for pizza with them. Quality of life would be compromised if you didn't go. Maybe that is close to an emergency, right? But you can always look at, how much do I really need to spend, right? Can I go and just, have a beverage and enjoy the company? So there's always a way to do it, but there's always a way to rationalize too. If you want to spend, if you want to do things that are not in alignment with your financial goals, you're going to find a way to calculate it and rationalize it and make it work. So it just starts with all the basics we've talked about for months, for years, right? It just starts with, have a financial roadmap, have a plan. What are we doing here? Color inside the lines, get a plan, stick with the plan. It's going to be a moving, breathing thing, and just do that. And part of that is spending within your means, earning more if you need to, having cash reserves, all these basics, right? It all kind of ties together.
All right, folks, we're at the tail end of our show, and you know what that usually means, right? It's our Money Truth Moment challenge, and this is going to be a good one.
Let's do it again. It was so good.
Let's do it again.
A double challenge.
There we go.
It's not that big of a challenge in my mind. Now, if this is foreign to you, it might feel hard, but it's very simple, right? Sometimes simple things are not so easy, but I think this one is not too big of a challenge. Just take that, that buck off the top of your wallet, the $5 off the top of your wallet, do something. So I would say start with 1%. If you're already doing something, maybe 2% would be the bigger challenge. And just save, of all the money that you make net, every paycheck or every month, whatever that number is, 1 or 2% of that, put it in your emergency reserves and get it started if you don't already have one. If you do have one, add 1 or 2% to it. That's your challenge, right? So that's the basic goal. The other thing, for those of you who are really good savers and you've got cash lying around and your bank accounts are full and you really have done well in the cash reserves area, take a look, challenge part B, right? Take a look at if you have too much in cash reserves, more than you need. And if some of that money needs to peel off and go to work, go put Mr. Money to work. So look for that. That's part B of your challenge for this week. Make it happen. You've got this.
All right, folks, you got the challenge. If you have any questions, please let us know. Also, if you have any future topics that you would like Judy to cover, please send us those requests. And if you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.today. Remember, we are here every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. with the replay on Thursdays at 8 p.m. So until next week, Judy, any last parting words?
Make it a great week.
All right, folks, you guys got this. Talk to you guys later.